Okay, welcome. Happy Monday. We're going to do a forward bending practice today. Mostly using a strap and blocks, but if you feel stiff today, you might want to substitute your blocks with a chair. And just take a moment to arrange yourself in your seated position. You can take your dominant cross-legged position today. And even though there's always a little imbalance in this pose, because we have one leg on top and one on the bottom, do your best to find as much evenness between left and right as you can. And also just taking some time to find the very center points of your sitting bones. And starting to stack your weight, shoulders in line with hips. Try to imagine the kind of the three prongs of the pelvic bowl and the two sitting bones there, and the tailbone. Lengthening up through the top of the crown of your head. Just feeling your shoulders moving back, your chest moving forward, your skull just right above the spine. And then moving your hands together without losing that nice position of your shoulders. And close your eyes, looking down toward your cheeks. Bringing your attention down to any part of your body, meeting the floor, meeting the props. Just inviting your own weight to root down a bit deeper, sensing you don't end where the floor begins, but that you continue somehow. And then starting to move your attention up the body, keeping the weight of yourself really anchored into the floor. See if you can find a slight lifting up of the pelvis, kind of away from that three-pronged connection to the floor. Lifting up of the rib cage, of the skull. Tuning into the abdomen, softening the abdomen. And just observing your own breath filling in and emptying. An automatic process in your body. Taking enough time here that you invite yourself to a more present state of mind through the doorways of breath, attention, sensation, awareness. And attempting to keep the shoulders back and the chest forward, bowing toward your heart. Releasing your hands, and on an in-breath, raise your head. Let your eyes gently open. Welcome. All right, so we're going to do a series of forward bends today. I've tried to pair them with just a few little heart openers so that we can keep the spine moving in both directions. So we're going to start in child's pose, a very humbling pose, a great pose to begin a class with, not only for that full extension of your spine and expansion of your back body, but also kind of the humbling nature of the pose to set down the ego, to quiet the nervous system. So just placing your head, if you need propping under the forehead, make sure to take the support so that you're not resting on the top of your head. It's better to be on the forehead. And try to keep your arms activated as you draw your sitting bones back toward your heels. Envisioning your outer shins rolling down toward the floor. And thinking about the tip of the tailbone like a periscope. And just pointing that lens down toward the floor. Bringing attention along the spine all the way from that tailbone tip all the way to the base of the skull and the brainstem. And every in-breath, just welcoming more extension along the spine. And with that extension, also expansion across the back body, shoulder blades all the way down to the lumbar spine, just broadening with each in-breath. On an in-breath, we're going to move into a hands and knees position, preparing for our first downward facing dog. We are going to do a series of downward facing dogs today. So just bring the knees in so they're only as wide as the hips. Make sure the feet have opened up as wide as the knees. And your wrists can be a little bit beyond the shoulder line just to make the dog a little bit longer. Curling the toes underneath. Let's take some time with that. Just see if you can work the toes really well underneath. Obviously the big toe gets a lot of the attention, but bring some attention to the small toes as well, even though they might not even be touching the floor. Try to direct the tips of the small toes toward the top of your mat, bringing some effort into all 10 toes. And then on an exhalation, extend your legs. Keeping your legs somewhat bent kneed, your heels somewhat lifted. See if you can draw the chest any amount closer to your thighs. Inviting the backs of your thighs to absorb the fronts of your thighs. And then you might begin to extend your legs more fully, but still keeping the heels quite lifted. Letting the armpits open up. Letting the shoulder blades sink deeper toward the chest. Keep your neck really neutral here. And still see if you can sense that extension and expansion of your spine and your back body. On an in-breath, you're going to raise your right leg without tilting your pelvis. So keep your pelvis really level. The idea that we don't want to do I call it the dog at the fire hydrant. So taking right leg as high as it goes. And then on an exhale, you're going to bring your right knee to the floor, right under your hip line. And pivot so that you're grounding your left foot. You're lining the left foot up with the right foot and right knee. And you're rotating your hips to the left. And just do your best to roll the left side body around, bringing the right side body forward. A little bit of a chance to get the heart to point into the sunlight. And then we'll take the left arm above the right arm, rotating from the shoulder, turn that left palm toward the top of your mat, and then align your left biceps with your ear. Just welcoming a big opening to the left side body here. Keep rolling the right buttock to the left edge of the mat. The right side, ribs, armpit, chest, around to the left torso. Go ahead and turn back toward the floor. Curl those left toes underneath. And exhale, shoot your right leg back up. And then gently lower the right toes. And we'll do the very same thing on the other side. So just spend a little time with both feet down, coming back to that edge of Gomukasana, downward facing dog. And on an in-breath, raising the left leg, keeping the leg straight and without rotating the pelvis. Really extending out through the sole of the left foot, the ball mounds, the toe pads, the heel. Coming to the top of an in-breath, and on the exhale, taking the left knee to the floor. Pivoting onto the right foot, and again, lining the right foot up with the left foot and knee. And then taking right arm above left arm. And rotating the arm so that the palm faces the top of the mat. Do your fullest rotation there. And then aligning the biceps with the ear. Welcoming some deeper breaths to just start to feel an elongation to your right side body. Anchor down through the outer edge of the right foot to bring a little bit more sensation in. Same with the right fingertips, extending just a little bit more emphatically through the right fingertips. And just imagining the trunk rotating gently, the flesh moving from left to right. And go ahead and find your table pose again. Not really, you're going to curl the right toes under. Exhale, shoot the left leg back. And then gently bring the toes down. So we are going to do this again. We're just going to build off of that. So go ahead and find child's pose just to kind of rest and recover. If your arms are tired, don't feel like you have to keep the activated arms for this child's pose. You might fold the arms in and create a little surface for your forehead. And just let yourself breathe, be a big enough container for the breath. Maybe it's a bigger breath or faster or louder. Don't try to inhibit the breath at all or quiet it down. Just let it come in and empty and find its way back to a nice, smooth, even breathing rhythm. Okay, so we're going to repeat that. Like I said, we're just going to add a little bit of a piece, a kneeling half moon pose. So you'll come back to hands and knees. Curl the toes underneath. Exhale, extend the legs. Inhale, raise your right leg. And exhale, take the right knee to the floor. Again, pivoting the left foot, lining that foot up with the right knee and foot. Come back to your side angle arm, so right next to the ear. And on an inhale, you're going to lift the left arm vertically and lift the right leg so it's horizontal level with the floor. This is your half moon. Go back to your side angle, bringing the foot down and the arm next to the ear. Go back to your half moon. And just do it a couple more times. That side angle position, the foot lowers, the arm lowers. Inhale, the leg lifts and the arm lifts. The next time the foot is down, you can turn back toward the floor, keep the left toes tucked. Go ahead and shoot the right leg back. You're back in Ekapada Adho Mukha Svanasana. And take the toes down, taking a pause here with both feet down. Next time you exhale, raising the left leg as high as it goes, keeping both legs straight, the pelvis level. Exhale, take the left knee to the floor. Pivot and ground the right foot. And find your way into your side angle arm. So the arm right next to the ear. Couple breaths there. Good. Raising the arm, raising the leg on an exhalation. The half moon, the kneeling version. Good. So you can move at your own pace here, just moving through these two, kneeling, side angle, kneeling, half moon. Just spending a breath or two in each one. And the next time you find that right foot is back down, you can turn and place both hands on the floor. Keep those right toes well tucked underneath. Exhale, shoot the left leg back. And then lower the toes. Place the knees, open the knees nice and wide toward the edges of the mat. And swing the feet together and you're back in child's pose. Again, make it as restful as you need. Just observe the breath as it comes and goes, as it changes, as it regulates. And so we'll add just one more piece. When you're ready, you'll come back to your hands and knees. Take the toes well underneath. Exhale, extend your legs. Inhale, raise your right leg. Exhale, place the right knee. Pivoting to the left foot, finding the side angle position. Then you're going to find the half moon position. And from there, bend your left knee and see if you can find your foot. And if you can find the foot and grab it, you're going to kick the top of the foot, really pressurize the top of the foot into the hand. And this gives you a little opportunity for a back bend. And I realize we might not all be able to make it, but just in a little attempt. And then you're going to reverse back through the half moon, then the side angle, and you'll do it one more time. From the side angle to the half moon, to the bind, where we grab the foot, or the attempt for the bind. And then the little back bend, we can get that chest a little bit more into the sunlight. Back to the half moon, back to the side angle, and then back to that left leg extended table pose. Shoot the right leg up and lower the toes. Just pausing there for a moment. Inhale, raise the left leg. Exhale, place the knee. Pivot and ground your right foot. Find your side angle, right side body, this beautiful slash from fingertips to foot. Taking it to half moon position. And bending the right knee. First challenge is actually finding the foot in space without the use of our vision. Maybe that's where you're working. Maybe you have the bind. If you have the bind, power it up by really kicking into the hand with the top of the foot to help you open the chest. Go back to your half moon, back to your side angle, and then just repeat it one more time. The half moon, the bind, maybe the work toward the bind, and then reversing those steps back. Once you have touched down with right foot, take the right hand to the floor, the right toes underneath. Exhale, shoot the left leg up. We're back in Ekapada. And then lower the toes. And this time you're going to just creep the feet and the hands together until your legs are underneath you. And you'll be in a resting Uttanasana. So your feet should be hip distance. Your knees are maybe somewhat bent. And then you'll grab your elbows in your opposite hands and do your best to really surrender the weight of the trunk, the weight of the skull. Hopefully feeling this reverse flow of gravity along the spine. Kind of a cascading momentum of the torso toward the floor. And you might add a little bit of motion here, just swinging gently, tapping into the backs of the legs individually. And drop your hands, bend your knees, and help yourself come up. And we'll just kind of recalibrate now that we're standing. You're going to put yourself in mountain pose. So you might have your feet still opened up, a couple of fists of space. You might have the feet together. So attempting to align your second toes with your heels. So for some of us, that means the heels aren't meeting. And give each toe some space. So lift the toe pads from the floor, spread the distance, place the toes with really nice space between the toes. And then once you have the broad toe bases, extend the heels back, like draw them back, lengthen the feet from front to back. Put your shoulders in line with your hips. Adjust your skull if you need to. Sometimes it's helpful to think place to think about that horizontal midline of the buttocks, gently moving into the front body. Try to create a relationship of your feet with the floor that is more of a dialogue than a monologue. So hopefully the feet are softening, they're not clinging. You're really capitalizing on the surface area. You're really balancing the weight bearing patterns as best you can. The legs are firm. Your kneecaps are really engaged by the contraction of the muscles that surround. And do your best to not clamp the buttocks. Drop your shoulders. Maybe even imagine someone pressing down upon the shoulders. And then resisting up through the crown of the head toward the ceiling. Good. And let your eyes open. Okay, so we're going to work on a couple different Uttanasanas. 3 different Uttanasanas. So the head-on Uttanasana, the side Uttanasana, and the revolved Uttanasana. So you might need your blocks, you might need a chair, depending on how tight you've felt thus far. And we're going to work with our feet hip distance. And we'll be coming into Arda Uttanasana first. So flat or concave lumbar. So just to take a moment to make sure your feet are in alignment, and then extend the arms up all the way through the fingertips. Try to bring the biceps a little bit back behind the ears or toward in that direction. Take an in-breath and really extend up through the fingertips, and then exhale, tilt the pelvis forward like you're pouring something out the front rim. Bring your hands onto your surface, whatever it is, and have the hands directly in line with the shoulders. And then rebalance your feet. Make sure you're not sinking in the heels or clinging on the toes. Take a few breaths looking forward to move the shoulder blades into the chest. Revolving the arms like we talked about last week. We can move the flesh of the arms, the upper arms from inner arms towards the outer arms to help the shoulders. And then keep as much of that as you can, the chest in the sunlight as much as you can. You're going to bow deeply towards your legs, coming into full Uttanasana. Now the lumbar is more convex. And you're going to curl your gaze in. Your hands are as low as they can be, and eventually the hands will align with the outer feet. Keep working to balance the feet and working toward a more fully extended legs, opening the backs of the knees. Imagine the flesh of the inner knees rotating back and the outer knees compressing slightly in toward midline. And a strong pelvic tilt to support the lower back. When we're in forward bends, the brain can get really quiet. I'm just envisioning it in this bath of juices floating around. And now inhale and come back to your Arda, your half position. And now we're going to move into Parshva to the right. So your blocks will just kind of transition over the right. And try to keep a shoulder distance of space there. So what you don't want to do is rotate your pelvis here. So imagine your sacrum or your buttocks against the wall evenly. We don't want to just swing the pelvis, then we kind of lose the whole objective. So we're in the kind of the Arda Parjva position, a half sideways position. Look forward. Sense or feel the concave or flat lumbar. Take a few in-breaths, extending your spine from tailbone to crown. And then on your exhale, you're going to try to carry as much of that into your full Parjva Uttanasana. Your blocks will come lower. You might actually grip with your left hand, the right ankle, could be the back of the leg also. But really watch the pelvis. We don't want to rotate. So you're doing your best to resist that right hip from rotating back. And you should get a more individualized stretch to your right leg here. And then inhale, come back to the Arda Parshva position. And then you can just walk your props back to center or slide if you have a chair. And then we'll set up to the left. So you can just take those blocks over to the left, make sure you're kind of observing any motion that just happened with your hips. Try to keep them level. And you're going to be in front of that left foot for the Arda position. Inhale, looking forward. Notice how this can show up a little bit in the opposing low back side, the right low back. And then on an exhale, lengthening the torso toward the left thigh, coming lower perhaps, maybe gripping with right hand to left back of ankle or calf or shin. And then try to align eventually left hand more consistently with the line of the left toes. And just keep observing that you're not escaping the Parshva aspect by just swiveling the hips. You might wing out your right elbow to keep your chest a little bit more broad. Working toward a more fully extended left leg. Just be right at your edge, give it some breath. And then inhale and come back to Arda Parshva and then back to Arda Uttanasana right in the center. And then last but not least, we're going to take Parjvo Uttanasana. So we're going to revolve this forward bend. We only need one block. So we're going to be sliding our left block to center. So that means that your wrist is kind of right directly in line with your sternum. It might be a little bit forward of that, depends on your body. So now you have 3 points of contact. Do your best to really equally distribute weight. We don't want to be imbalanced. So we want to balance the little tripod. Right hand to your right hip. On an exhale, you're pushing down through those 3 points and you're turning your chest to the right, which means your right elbow is moving toward the left. So you're revolving the trunk from left to right. So this is a very open version. Eventually you're binding your own leg and doing this, so it's more compact. But in yoga, we advance our practice. The poses become more compact as we become more adept at the poses. So it's nice to learn them in a very spacious way. So another in-breath, tailbone to crown. And then you're going to exhale back to Arda Uttanasana. You can just take both blocks or the chair, just resting there for a pause. And then we'll be transitioning the right block to the midline, kind of right under the sternum or the face. And then the left hand to the left hip. Watch those swiveling hips. Make sure they are really stabilized. You might squeeze the hip bones toward each other to kind of remind you to really stay stabilized there so you can mobilize up above, especially in the chest area. Push down into your little tripod. And then start to rotate the chest, the sternum, off to the left. Take that left elbow off to the right. Finish and exhale, really empty it out. And then you can inhale, spaciously lengthen back to center, back to Arda Uttanasana. Go into ragdoll or the rest of Uttanasana, whatever elbows you grab, you can trust that's probably dominant. Just switch it out because we did the other before. Let your head dangle. Let your breath do its thing. Knees can be soft. Good. Now find your way up. So really gripping the stomach muscles to support your spine. Come all the way up. Put yourself back in mountain pose. Just checking in. Maybe noticing the body more spontaneously sorting itself out into alignment. Maybe not, maybe you're still giving yourself a lot of direction. Either one is fine. Maybe noticing a little more steadiness has come already, maybe not. It's not that we're seeking certain answers, we're just really just trying to tune in to what is true, not so attached to any particular outcome. So we're going to do a series of Parjvo Tanasanas, working toward the reverse prayer position. So if you feel really unsteady today, I welcome you to have a chair or blocks available to your right side. Otherwise, we aren't going to use them. We're going to have our hands in different positions. Classically, the pose is taught with the reverse prayer position behind our backs. And if you know you normally in cow pose, Gomukasana, need your strap, we'll use that in the second variation. So you'll want your strap. We'll jump or step out as you're ready. Try to spread the feet without getting too vertical with that jump. And then you'll turn your right toes out and your left toes way in. And I always have to accommodate for my own hip width. I have to actually move my back foot over a little bit. So make sure your feet are hip distance apart, that you're not feeling wobbly in your hips. So give yourself a little more width if you are quite wobbly. And then just take a moment to rotate your hips so we're compensating for the asymmetry of the legs. We have to bring the left hip around and the right hip back. So the first piece we're going to do is a low clasp. You can go into your dominant interlocking hands. And once you have that, then roll your shoulders back. So try to roll your shoulders into external rotation and then extend your arms like you're pulling your hands toward the floor, taking the bend out of the elbows. Firm your legs. We get a little forgetful sometimes of our back leg being very powerful here. So fully straighten your back leg, anchor your heel toward or into the ground. Move your tailbone in and lift your chest, big in-breath here. Come to the top of the in-breath, and then you're going to try to align your breastbone with your right leg. You're going to come into the Arda Parjvo Uttanasana position, meaning your low back remains concave or flat. So notice how the hands pulling back propels the chest oppositionally forward. So work together with the hands and the chest. Keep your shoulder flesh moving front to back. Keep your eyes soft. And on an exhale, take it into your fullest expression, bowing the chest toward the right leg. The arms angling up in proportion to the torso angling down. And then just like a seesaw, on the in-breath, the hands come down, the torso comes up. And we'll pivot back to center. Free the hands, extend the arms nice and wide, and you can jump or step back in. Just put yourself back into your mountain pose. Sometimes after binding the hands in these poses, my arms feel like they're floating. So just notice any sensations that follow. And then we'll prepare for second side. As you're ready, you can find your way to your wide stance. And moving from the root of the thigh, pivoting the left toes to the left end of the mat and the right toes about 60 to 80 degrees. Winding the hips to become level. Fully extend both legs. Be aware of hyperextension. Some of us are overly mobile, so make sure you're not locking that you're not hyperextending your knees. If you tend to do that, try to squeeze your thigh muscles a little. Some people call it micro bending. And then go ahead and find your alternate interlock, so the less favored. And again, roll the shoulders back, fully extend the arms, just really power up those arms. Inhale, lift the chest. And then exhale, Arda Uttanasana. Your nose kind of coming right above the left big toe. And every time you inhale, that nose kind of starts to move beyond that big toe or in that direction. But know what's anchoring you, the back heel, the clasping hands. You always need something to resist away from, to make it more dynamic and to make it more stable. And if you sense your left hip swiveling forward, you know what to do. Cut the outer left hip back, which will naturally bring the outer right hip forward. Also squeeze the hips together. Balance the toe pads. We do tend to shift our weight toward the forward leg side. So in this case, our weight is rotating out to the left small toe. So bring it over to the right small toe. And over to the left small toe and the right small toe. And exhale, bow deeply. And then anchoring into back heel, using the power of your arms and your hands, use the power of the crown of the head, and the in-breath, come up. And then pivoting wide, extend the arms, and jump or step back in. And there you are, back in mountain pose, just feeling the feelings, feeling the arms, maybe the lightness. Allowing for the breath. And as you're ready, let your eyes open. So second variation is the Gomukasana arms with Parjvo Tanasana. So the same standing pose, just a different arm position. And because we're taking the right side first, our left arm will be our top arm. So you'll have your left arm. And I did finally cut a strap, so I'm going to go find my little shorter strap. I don't have 10 feet of strap hanging around me. So the left arm takes the high position. You might do a little assist and kind of rotate the flesh of the left arm, winding that biceps kind of around. And then you might also push down on the elbow just to assist your hand a little lower down the back. And then extending your right arm out, thumb down, internally rotating, and then swinging the arm, catching the strap, and closing that gap between your hands as best you can. Attempting to put both shoulders into external rotation. And then from there, you can jump or step out. And we'll move into the right foot pivoting out, the left toes pivoting in, maybe stepping a little wider with the left foot. Just like we did before, all the same prep, except we also want to add the elbow tips moving back, which will help the scapula move forward, will help the shoulders externally rotate. So bring those elbow tips back and also create some dynamic energy from the bottom elbow to the top elbow. Resist them apart without your hands sliding apart. Big inhale. And then exhale into the Arda position. So concave or flat lumbar, lengthening the torso toward the right leg. As we kind of get more into gravity here, the elbows want to drop. So really the resistance of the elbows has to get stronger here because we're facing gravity differently. Press the elbow tips up, keep the chest forward, and then exhale, bow into your fullest expression. Inhale, lengthen up, all the way up, pivot yourself wide. You just kind of keep your strap in one hand and step it together. Just keep holding your strap, pausing here, noticing, taking mountain pose, observing the breath. And as you're ready, then opening the eyes. This time the right arm will be our top arm. You'll start with your strap in that hand
You might roll that upper arm flesh around, which helps the shoulder kind of broaden, helps the elbow stay more in line with the shoulder rather than wider than the shoulder. And then also pushing on the elbow maybe a little bit to get your hand as close to the dorsal spine as you can between the shoulder blades. Keep all of that as best you can. Let go with that left hand, thumb down. And then swinging the arm, crawling the hands together. And then taking the elbow tips back, lengthening the elbows apart, jumper step out. Turning the left toes out, right toes in. Firming the legs, aligning the hips, tapping into the power of those elbows, pressing back, shoulder blades moving forward. Lift your breastbone, inhale, exhale, lengthen toward the left leg, and just stop when you sense you're going to start to round. This being Arda Uttanasana, really giving a lot of emphasis to the elbows, resisting that drooping quality that wants to happen here, taking those elbow tips back. Transferring some weight to your left big toe, right small toe to compensate for that momentum in the opposite direction. And then finish here with a deep bow, whatever you've got. On an in breath, coming up, turning the feet. And hold your strap in one hand and bring your feet back together. And you can put that strap aside. And I'm taking a pause once again. Good. So we're going to see about Paschima Namaskarasana. Paschima is Western facing. Classically, yoga was taught facing east. The back body is considered the Western side. Namaskarasana is prayer pose. So Paschima Namaskarasana is Western facing prayer pose. So we're going to start with our hands meeting, fingertips pointing down, kind of thumb bases right along the tailbone area, and then sliding your fingertips onto your sacrum or your tailbone, and then continuing to rotate. Your fingers are now going to slide up your back. Now your pinkies are resting on the sacrum or tailbone, and then you're just going to start to work the hands as close as you can get to that dorsal spine, that sweet spot behind your chest. So you're going to give some scaffolding to the chest with the contact of your hands, but it's only beneficial pose if you can close your hands, because you can see the shoulders, if your hands aren't closed, are rounding forward. So there's no function there. But if you can get your hands to meet, that's going to externally rotate your shoulders. So if you're not there yet, I don't recommend doing a quasi Paschima Namaskarasana because it's not going to really do anything for you. So instead, you'll go to a forearm grab. You might come back to your interlock, which for me, it depends what gets you into better external shoulder rotation. So you have to kind of do both and just check it out, which one's going to kind of really give you that sense of the shoulders sitting back, okay? So if you are able to do Paschima Namaskarasana, you're going to be there. Otherwise, pick your alternate. And then once you have position, you can go ahead and jump the feet apart. And then we'll do the right side. Okay. So we're going to pass all the way through the Arda part. We're going to come into our fullest, deepest, and we're going to stay for 5 breaths. So let's take a nice inhale here. And then on your exhale, really try to lead with your breastbone. Keep your eyes forward on the horizon line as long as you can. Make sure you're lining yourself up with your right leg, resisting those drooping elbows. If you're in one of those positions that the elbows tend to droop, and then finish it off, 5 breaths. Other parts of the body are active so that the brain, the nervous system can rest. Let your skull, just imagine it floating around in the bath of all those juices in your skull, resting the brain.
On the in-breath, you're gonna lift yourself up. Pivoting, extend your arms, and jump or step back in. Pausing in mountain pose. I forgot to take my ring off for that one and it really hurt, so I'm going to remove it. And just watch the breath. So if you did one of the alternate poses for the arms, go into your less dominant, either forearm grab or less dominant interlock. So if you're in reverse prayer, that's a symmetrical pose. You'll just come back to that. So find your next position for left side. And once you have it, jump or step the feet. And we'll set up turning those left toes fully out toward the left end of the mat. Right toes 60 to 80. Big in-breath, lift your heart, roll the shoulders back. Exhale, bow deeply over the left leg. One day, someday, your chin is on your shin. So keep transferring weight to the right. You can sense it's momenting, it's pulling into the left. It's just, that's the momentum, so we have to equalize. You can suck that outer left hip bone to midline. Last big exhale. Following inhale is going to lead you out. Inhale to come up. Pivoting back to that nice broad centered up position. Extend your arms. And last time jumping or stepping back in. Unfold your arms. And we'll just take one last mountain pose here. Lifting from the very base of the spine all the way up through the top of your head. And then allowing everything to the periphery of the spine on each side, just descend toward the floor. Earlobes, the shoulders, hips, the outer arms. And from here, we're going to find our way to our backs. And you're going to set up with sacrum support. So if all you have is a block, that's going to be the most uncomfortable. But if that's all you have, try to cover it with a blanket so you're not feeling so much edginess. If you have a bolster or a couple blankets, that's going to be better because it's softer. You're not going to have to deal with like a hard surface against your lower back. We're just going to do a few reclining forward bends here, but we're going to start with a supported bridge, which is a very mild back bend, just to kind of level the playing field a little bit. So you're going to come down onto your propping, whatever you have, so that your sacrum has that support. And so this isn't your most active bridge. Your shins should be vertical. Your heels aren't as close as they could be to the buttocks. And your feet are wide. And just make sure you're not toeing out. So you want to put your heels and toes in the same line. The outer edges of the feet align with the outer edges of your mat. The knees probably falling toward each other a little bit. Your hands to your belly. And rock your head to encourage the back of the neck to elongate, to encourage the chin to tilt toward the chest. And then just try not to do anything else. Just try to be passive, receiving the support you've set up here, breathing, observing. Now we're going to walk the feet in so that we can pick up the feet and come into reclining child's pose. And just let gravity help your thighs kind of sink toward the chest. And again, you might need to readjust your head because we do have a tendency to creep toward the crown of the head when we're reclining. So you might have to readjust so that that neck is elongated. Again, the chin is tilting down. Notice how the exhales help you kind of become a bit more passive with this. Our hips always have a little reflexive resistance. We're just taking enough time to wait that out. And then you're going to extend your legs and just kind of finding the sweet spot in space where it takes the least amount of effort to hold your legs there. I just remembered I used to trick my mom when I was little. It probably didn't work at all. But I would try to fall asleep like this. Like try to have her believe I fell asleep like this. I just remembered that. I must have been a joy to raise. And then go ahead and extend your arms overhead with your palms facing up, your fingernails reaching out. And without the sacrum really pulling away from the floor, so you're resisting your lower sacrum to stay down, let your legs just start to descend toward your torso. So this is a inverted, it's a reclining Parshva Tanasana, Western facing forward bend, which we'll get to on Friday. We're going to do a lot of our seated stuff Friday. So it's kind of this combination of your legs coming closer to your trunk, but also that piece of keeping your lower sacrum down. So if you let that uproot, your legs obviously could come closer. So you really want to try to do both. And meanwhile, even though gravity is not to our advantage here, try to press your legs from front to back. In other words, think about the backs of your thighs absorbing the fronts of your thighs. Soften your belly, keep your chin tilting down toward your chest. Maybe close your eyes. Keep your armpits open. Keep some energy streaming through the fingertips. Look toward your cheeks. So our forward bends always have to be active enough / interesting enough. Otherwise, the brain just goes into screensaver mode, which is never anything we want in our poses. We need the brain, the consciousness pricked. So if the body can remain active, our brain rests in this active way, not in the sluggish, sleepy way. It's in a very hyper-conscious way. Very present state. So now we get to wind down and find our way toward Shavasana. So you can start by bending your knees. You might hug those legs in toward your body using your hands to assist. You might get a little extra pressure to the outer shins or knees to feel a little bit of broadness to your abdomen, sacrum, pelvis. So if you kind of clamp around the knees, as a result, we get a little bit more spaciousness in the hips and pelvis, the lower back. You might circle your knees, just kind of lending your own dexterity here to kind of circle around on your sacrum. Just kind of feel it out till you have enough addressed in your body that you're going to be able to be really still without a lot of physical nagging. And then once you bring your feet down, you're going to remove the elevation under you. And before we come into Shavasana, we're going to just windshield wiper the knees a little bit so that the spine gets a nice release with a twist. So walk your feet back to the edges of the mat, hands on your belly. And you're going to be rocking from side to side on the feet. So rolling the knees over to the right as you roll your head left. Inhale through the middle with the face, with the knees. Keep moving the knees over to the left, the head to the right. Just imagine wringing out a washcloth. It's just very Very lubricating for the spine. Let those exhales really complete. Don't cut them short. Also feel how the floor gives you a little massage to the lower back as you pass through the center. And you want to do this in rhythm with your breath. Sometimes I see people do it really fast. It's really meant to be exhaling nice and deeply to each side, inhaling to transfer through center. So really slow setting on the windshield wiper. And when you have kind of that inner cue that you're ready to extend your legs and set up for Shavasana, just arrange your body on the floor. Make sure to draw the heels away from the buttocks away from the lower back. Maybe move the shoulder blades slightly closer together and toward the chest. Unfold the arms so you have aerating armpits, which is more about energy than aeration. And then make sure the head adjusts. So you might rock your head again. You might actually grab your whole head and pick it up and tilt the chin toward the chest. And then once you sense you've done your best to align your reclining pose, go into your passive setting, 0 effort. You might have to just run a body scan from your head to your feet and just kind of put everything off duty. Sometimes I imagine turning lights off in an entire house from the top floor all the way down to the basement. A lot of our tension lingers in the face and the skull. But be extra deliberate with the eyes, the mouth, any tension in your cheeks, forehead, jaw. Try to release. Maybe imagine your eyes resting on little pillows in the backs of the sockets. Another usual suspect is the abdomen. Releasing any superfluous tension from the abdomen. And then once you've done that, turning the lights off in the house procedure, just spend the remaining moments just fully witnessing. Give your undivided attention. Noticing a passive brain is not a sleepy or dull brain. Very conscious, very present. And start to lengthen your breaths, just slowly starting to invite yourself out of the pose. Maybe start to bring a little motion to your fingers and toes. Maybe rolling your head from side to side. Taking your hands onto your torso somewhere. Sliding the soles of the feet to the floor one at a time. And then easing to one side. When you're on your side, just spend a little time there, not in any rush. Maybe your eyes will open here. And then use your hands pressing into the floor to bring yourself up. Putting yourself into good space pose, Gomukasana. And then finding your hands meeting in front of the heart. Let's take a deep breath in through the nose and let it go. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. All right. Well, thank you all for showing up today, and I hope you have a great week, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.